Electronic Arts is a company that we all love to hate. It's seen by many people as the villain of the video games industry, even though it hasn't really done so many villainous things in the past few years. But make no mistake, Electronic Arts was kind of evil for quite a long time. A company hell-bent on destroying everything in its wake, laying waste to anyone and anything in its path to greatness. And this is the top 7 studios that Electronic Arts destroyed. A show dedicated to remembering all those companies, those creative studios that made so many great games in the past and then were bought out by Electronic Arts, and then things did not go so well. Even when the best intentions were in play, events unfolded that are seen by many as being regrettable. Electronic Arts has tried to improve its image and its practices over the years, but you can still sort of sense that there's a lot of dead companies under its boot. That being said, let's get it started with number 7, Mythic Entertainment. Established in the year 1995, Mythic Entertainment is the company responsible for creating one of the greatest MMOs of its age. Dark Age of Camelot, to be more precise, the game that brought us large-scale realm versus realm PvP combat in MMOs. A bygone creation of an ancient time before the existence of World of Warcraft. During the development of Warhammer Online Age of Reckoning, the studio was bought out by Electronic Arts in the year 2006. The game was released in 2008. You don't remember the game existing, I guarantee it. That's because it was shut down not long after. After that, Mythic had the job of sustaining Ultima Online, adding elves into it, and in 2014 it was closed permanently, but the people working there sort of moved on to Broadsword, which is a different studio, which now handles Ultima Online by itself. You would have expected that Electronic Arts could have done something with the creators of one of the most successful MMOs of its day, but you'd be wrong. Number 6, Bullfrog. Peter Molyneux's first gaming company. One that brought us a lot of very interesting, superb video games. Extremely creative, highly unpredictable, and just amazing. I mean, you've got a game where you control an evil overlord that is terrorizing its Oh, that game was made in 1997, 2 years after Bullfrog was bought out by Electronic Arts. So you kind of understand where they could have gotten the inspiration from. And to be fair, under Electronic Arts, the studio did go on to create Syndicate Wars and the highly acclaimed Theme Hospital and Theme Park World, and then it died. It went poof. Never to be seen, never to be heard, but for its memory to be defiled when Electronic Arts released a mobile version of Dungeon Keeper, one that was so bad, so horrible, so absolutely insanely conceived by a marketing department staffed by no actual human beings, that even Electronic Arts went and said, yeah, we may have gone a bit far. And they did. They did. Number 5. Distinctive Software Inc. If you don't know this name, then you probably are not a big fan of racing games, and I mean classic racing games. Distinctive Software, DSI for short, created the Test Drive series. It made the excellent stunts game, which sort of turns out still has an active community, and then was bought out by Electronic Arts in the year 1991. The studio sort of ceased to exist officially then, being swallowed up by EA Canada, but it was sort of still going on because this studio then went on to create Need for Speed and made every Need for Speed game up until the end of the Golden Age, with Need for Speed 5 Porsche being their last one. And that's kinda where it died, around the year maybe 2001, 2002, when EA just started making Need for Speed games at Black Box, ones that were more focused on crunk music and underground racing, and not the simulation aspect, not the feeling of it, or on the style. Not that it was a bad move, I mean, some of those games were actually great, but you kind of miss the old distinctive software touch, the old test drive feel, the old need for speed. Number 4. Bioware. Established in the year 1995 by a bunch of doctors, this studio created Baldur's Gate, and Baldur's Gate 2, and Neverwinter Nights, and some game about robots you don't remember. And then in the year 2007, while it was working on Dragon Age and Mass Effect, it was bought out by Electronic Arts, who then went on to actually help the studio turn Dragon Age and Mass Effect into multi-million-dollar franchises with varying results of actual quality. And they also made an MMO into which they dumped hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's still being played by people because it's free and has nice stories, and it's not really that good as an MMO. Now you may wonder, well, why is Bioware here? Bioware isn't dead. Now sure, it may not be completely dead, but is it truly still alive? Electronic Arts, if you don't remember, went through a phase where it just called every one of its studios Bioware. You had Bioware Mythic, you had Bioware Victory, you had Bioware. They sucked all the positivity and appeal from the Bioware name as soon as they could. Also turns out a lot of people there left, and they're now doing other things like making beer, and bits of the studio were kind of closed off after Andromeda, and they are making a new Dragon Age. They were also making another one of those asymmetrical games that got shut down before it was released, and there may be a chance that the studio will not maybe see the year 2020. Slight chance. Depends on the market. Number 3. Westwood. This is the studio that created the RTS. This is the studio that made Dune 2. This is the studio that made Command & Conquer. This is the studio that made, well, Eye of the Beholder, for one. And in the year 1998, it made a deal where they would be bought out by Electronic Arts. And to be fair, like, things didn't go instantly, completely awry. No, at first it was kind of okay. They had Electronic Arts budget, so they could hire actors for their games instead of just acting out their own scenes in the games like they used to. And this had a positive effect on the quality. They were a bit less campy, still kind of had the same charm. But Electronic Arts really wanted to move the studio, and the studio didn't want to move, and one thing led to another, and it sort of went spoof. And a lot of the people that worked at Westwood just reformed as Petroglyph. But we did get Command & Conquer Tiberium Sun and the excellent Riddler 2, and from what was left of the studio we did get Command & Conquer 3, and in 2003 it was shut down. And then Electronic Arts went on to savagely, brutally do very unconsenting things to the Command & Conquer series, culminating with creating Victory Studio, which would revive the series, and then decide not to. Also, they made the Command & Conquer 4, which we pretend it doesn't exist. Red Alert 3 was okay. It wasn't as great as it could have been, but oh gods was it better than Command & Conquer 4. Number 2. Maxis, or Maxis, or however you want to pronounce it. Established in 1987, this was Will Wright's studio. This is where he made SimCity. This is where he built a new genre of games. The sim games. Games that will simulate things just for the heck of it. You can simulate cities, simulate ant farms, simulate shoppers, simulate towers, simulate simulations. And they were amazing games, all superb video games, all of them magnificent. For the most part. Not all of them. A few were not so great, didn't sell well. They kinda needed Electronic Arts to save their behinds, and that happened in 1997. And to be fair, in those years, some of them, they released SimCity 3000, which was a good game. They released The Sims, which killed the studio. The Sims was sort of the thing that Electronic Arts wanted, and once it was done, they kind of made a separate studio to just do The Sims, and it kept on doing it. Meanwhile, well, Maxis tried to do the simulate everything thing again and try to create Spore. And then someone at Electronic Arts said, you know, you should aim Spore at babies and remove the interesting bits. And they did. And the game kind of was horrible. Though to be fair, by today's standards, it's a brilliant game that is in no way as pointless and miserable as No Man's Sky. And then they try to do another SimCity game, but again under the direction of Electronic Arts, and they made a horrible one, which somehow got scores of 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, amazing, super duper, from people that obviously didn't actually play it, but are still somehow considered to be core elements of the press for some reason. And then came the announcement that the studio would be shut down. Doom came to Maxis in the year 2015. A studio with so many creative ideas destroyed by its own success, but mostly by Electronic Arts. And number one is Origin Systems. Richard Garriott's studio, the one he established because publishers would generally backstab him when it came to video game royalties. Origin had a motto, we create worlds. And they did. They created so many worlds. They created incredible games that pushed the boundaries of what a video game can do. They made the Ultima series. They made Ultima Underworld, which was in its own right a different and sprawling and amazing game. They made Wing Commander. They made so many great games. But they were expensive to make, so when they needed some more capital to finish some games, they encountered the problem of no bank willing to loan them even though they had a good track record. There's a bit of suspicion that there may have been some fudging going around by a certain evil organization that was repeatedly trying to buy them out. Signs of their resentment of Electronic Arts can be found in Ultima 7 all throughout, which is funny because Electronic Arts did publish Ultima 7 because in 1992 it bought the company. The immediate result was that Ultima 8 came out and it was kind of not good because they basically gave them half the time they needed to actually make the game. But they did order up an expansion which was completed, and Electronic Arts never released it because Electronic Arts doesn't give a damn. But they did fund bigger and more epic Wing Commander games that actually had actors this time in the cinematics like Mark Hamill, you know, Luke Skywalker. And Electronic Arts did publish the first game to be called an MMO, and the one that was the most successful of its time, Ultima Online, though it was actually made mostly without Electronic Arts knowing about it, and to actually sort of fund it, or at least keep it going, Origin sold CDs with the beta, and when the dollars started coming in, Electronic Arts realized, oh my god, these people we bought because they were successful on account of them being creative are doing something creative and it's successful. How did we not think about this? And they went on to publish Ultima Online, and for a while, yeah, it was they killed the studio. They murdered it because they continued to do things with it, like with Ultima 9, and kind of cancelling most of its projects like an Ultima Online 2, a Privateer Online, even a Harry Potter Online, which you think would have been a big cash cow. And then the studio was killed off in the year 2004, with its corpse being reanimated and paraded around as Origin, the digital distribution system that is now used by Electronic Arts for all its games. A system that is actually not that bad. It's a lot better than Uplay. It even had refunds before Steam did, though there was the bit with the spying when it was first released. After all, this is Electronic Arts, a company that still has in its property the greatest RPG franchise ever created, one of the greatest space combat series ever made, and it chooses to do nothing with them. When Star Citizen is getting hundreds of millions from people that just want to play something like Wing Commander used to be, Electronic Arts, who owns Wing Commander, doesn't do a thing, because if they did, they wouldn't suck. Well, that would be it for the top 7 companies that Electronic Arts has swallowed and completely obliterated, like the intro of Spore, which is sort of like a joke. You know, actually, most of the intros of Electronic Arts games tend to show Electronic Arts as something demonic, something that's destructive, something that's trying to obliterate the company that's actually building the game. I'm not sure if Electronic Arts understands this, like if they got the joke, like it happened with the Ultima 7. You kinda have to expect that they did. I mean, it's been years since people have been calling them the evil empire and stuff, and they have shown signs to be less dickbags about everything. So maybe, who knows, Electronic Arts may actually turn out to be really a great company in the coming years. A glorious one. A superb one. It's gonna close Bioware, isn't it? It's probably gonna close Bioware.